Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why some men seem obsessed with you, but not in a creepy way, in a way that pulls you in without you even realizing it? Today, I'm revealing 6 psychological tricks men use when they're truly crazy about you. Tricks so subtle, so strategic, they can make you feel seen, valued, and understood before a single word is spoken. If you've ever questioned someone's intentions or wondered how to tell if a man's feelings are real, you don't want to blink. Because what I'm about to share will change the way you see attraction forever. When a man is truly crazy about you, it doesn't show up the way movies make it look. It doesn't explode. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't come with glowing signs or dramatic speeches. It shows up quietly, strategically, and psychologically. Because when a man is emotionally invested, he doesn't just use words, he uses behavior, not to manipulate you, but to anchor himself in your world. And the men who are deeply attached don't chase loudly, they position themselves intelligently. The first psychological move is presence without pressure. He makes himself available without making you feel trapped. He answers when you call. He shows up when he says he will. He remembers what you say, but he doesn't crowd you. That's deliberate. That's discipline. A man who is crazy about you understands that pressure creates resistance, but consistency creates safety. He wants you to feel calm around him, not overwhelmed. His goal isn't to chase you down, it's to make you feel like life functions better when he's around. That's not accidental. That's psychology. The second thing he does is mirror your emotional rhythm. He studies you without making it obvious. He learns how you react under stress, how you laugh when you're comfortable, how quiet you get when you're hurt. Then he adjusts. He slows down when you're overwhelmed. He leans in when you feel distant. This isn't manipulation, this is alignment. It's his nervous system syncing with yours. When he's crazy about you, he's not fighting your energy, he's matching it. And when someone matches your emotional frequency, you feel understood without needing to explain yourself. The third strategy is controlled vulnerability. He doesn't dump his trauma on you. He doesn't make you his therapist. Instead, he reveals just enough truth to let you see beneath the armor. He shows you small cracks, small stories, small real moments. That's intentional. Because vulnerability creates connection, but oversharing creates burden. He's not trying to impress you with perfection. He's trying to build trust through honesty. He lets you see that he's human but stable, strong but not shut down. That balance is rare, and it creates emotional gravity. The fourth psychological tactic is protection without possession. He becomes aware of your safety, your comfort, your environment. He walks on the outside of the sidewalk. He notices when you're tired. He notices when something feels off. But he doesn't control you. He doesn't isolate you. He doesn't compete with your freedom. Real attachment doesn't cage. It secures. When he's crazy about you, his instinct is to cover you, not own you. And that's a huge difference. Ownership is ego. Protection is instinct. The fifth move is investment without announcement. He starts putting you into his future without making a speech about it. He adjusts his schedule. He thinks ahead. He saves you a space in his day. He introduces you to parts of his world slowly, intentionally. He's not loud about it. He's not selling you a dream. He's just moving you into position. This is subtle but powerful. Men who are not serious talk big and act small. Men who are crazy about you act big and speak small. And the sixth psychological trick is restraint. This one is the most important. When a man is deeply into you, he doesn't rush intimacy, emotional or physical. He doesn't overwhelm you with desire. He doesn't blur the lines. He holds himself back. Not because he lacks interest, but because he respects your pace. He wants you clear-minded, not clouded. He wants you choosing him, not being swept up by him. Restraint is strength. It's discipline, and discipline is a sign of deep feeling. Now understand this, these are not tricks to trap you. These are signs of emotional intelligence, because a man who is truly crazy about you doesn't try to conquer you. He tries to understand you. He doesn't try to impress you with chaos. He tries to bring you calm. He doesn't manipulate your emotions. He protects them. He values them. He studies them. He becomes predictable in the best way. Not boring, not dull, stable, solid. You don't feel confused. You don't feel anxious. You don't feel like you're guessing where you stand. His actions line up with his words. His energy doesn't shift. His attention doesn't disappear. He doesn't run hot and cold. That hot and cold behavior is not passion, it's immaturity. Real passion is steady. And when he's with you, he listens like your words matter. He doesn't wait for his turn to talk. He absorbs what you say. He remembers it. He brings it back later. He doesn't minimize your feelings. He doesn't try to fix everything immediately. Sometimes he just sits with you in silence, because he understands that presence is more powerful than solutions. He also challenges you, but with respect. He doesn't flatter you blindly. He doesn't agree with everything. He holds you to your best, not your comfort. That's another psychological indicator. A man who doesn't care will let you stay small. A man who is crazy about you wants you strong. He wants you disciplined. He wants you peaceful. Because he sees you as someone to build with, not someone to impress. He becomes emotionally steady, even when life shakes him. You'll notice that when things go wrong, he doesn't take it out on you. He doesn't disappear. He doesn't shut you down. He regulates himself. That's huge. Emotional regulation takes effort. And people don't make that effort for people they don't value. He's not perfect. He's controlled. He's intentional. And that intentionality shows how serious he is. He also gives you space to be yourself fully. He doesn't try to change your personality. He doesn't nitpick your habits. He doesn't criticize your individuality. Instead, he respects it. He admires it. He gives you room to express without fear of judgment. That's psychological safety. That's not weakness. That's strength. And the final thing you have to understand is this. When a man is truly crazy about you, you don't feel like you're auditioning. You don't feel like you're chasing. You don't feel like you're proving your worth. You feel chosen without force, valued without performance, secure without tension. And that's not because he said the right things. It's because his psychology shifted from self-centered to protective, from ego-driven to caring, from chaos to calm. That kind of man doesn't play games. He doesn't gamble with your emotions. He doesn't keep you guessing. He positions himself as a safe place in a world full of uncertainty. And when you're around him, your nervous system knows it before your mind does. You breathe easier. You laugh more genuinely. You speak freely. You don't walk on eggshells. You walk in confidence. Because when a man is crazy about you, his psychology isn't about control. It's about connection, not possession. And connection is not built through grand gestures. It's built through consistent, quiet decisions that stack up over time. It's built through the way he looks at you when you aren't paying attention, the way he adjusts his tone when he senses you're tired, the way he notices the details that most people overlook. He becomes observant without being invasive, attentive without being demanding. He studies what makes you feel safe, because your safety becomes a priority in his emotional world. When a man is deeply invested, he also becomes patient in ways that surprise you. He doesn't react instantly to every emotion. He doesn't escalate conflict. He pauses. He thinks. He chooses his words carefully. That pause is not weakness. That pause is control. That pause is him deciding that protecting the connection matters more than winning the moment. A man who isn't serious wants to win arguments. A man who cares wants to preserve the bond. He also becomes honest in a very specific way, not brutal, not careless, but clean. His words don't have double meanings. His promises don't come with hidden exits. He doesn't tell you things just to keep you close. He tells you the truth because he respects you enough to let you make choices from clarity, not illusion. That level of respect is psychological maturity. It's rare because it requires him to let go of manipulation and move into integrity. You'll notice he becomes consistent even when no one is watching. He doesn't perform for attention. He doesn't switch personalities in different rooms. The man who is crazy about you doesn't need an audience because his behavior isn't a show. It's a standard. He treats you with the same calm respect in private that he does in public. There are no masks, no contrasts, no confusion. Another quiet psychological shift is the way he handles distance. When you're not around, he doesn't grow cold. He doesn't test you by disappearing. He doesn't play games to see if you'll chase. Instead, he stays steady. He doesn't collapse, but he doesn't detach. He sends signals of stability, a message that carries warmth, a check-in that doesn't feel forced, a presence that feels secure, even when you're not physically close. He understands that emotional endurance matters more than emotional intensity. He also becomes protective over your peace, not just your safety, but your mental state. He avoids unnecessary drama. He doesn't bring chaos to your door. If he has stress, he processes it without dumping it on you. If he has pressure, he handles it without making it your burden. This isn't emotional suppression. This is emotional respect. He knows you're not there to absorb his storms. You're there to share his calm. You'll find that he stops competing with you and starts complimenting you. He's not threatened by your strength. He's not insecure about your independence. He doesn't feel smaller because you're powerful. In fact, your strength makes him feel more grounded. That's a psychological marker of real attraction. Weak men feel challenged. Strong men feel inspired. He also becomes intentional with the way he touches you, even in small ways. A hand on your back, a moment of stillness beside you, the way he pulls you closer when you're quiet. These aren't random. These are subconscious attempts to regulate both of your nervous systems. Touch, when done with respect, is grounding. It tells your body, without words, you are safe here. And a man who is crazy about you wants your body to feel safe before your heart ever has to. You'll notice he gives you space to speak freely, even when at you say is difficult to hear. He doesn't shut you down when you express discomfort. He doesn't punish you for setting boundaries. In fact, he respects your boundaries more. That sounds simple, but psychologically it's huge. A man who doesn't care will push your limits. A man who does care will protect them with you. He also stops seeing vulnerability as weakness. Your tears don't scare him. Your hard days don't push him away. He doesn't minimize your pain or joke it away. He takes it seriously. He sits with it. He gives it room. That emotional steadiness is something he doesn't offer casually. It's something he reserves for what he values most. There's a shift in how he prioritizes his time. He doesn't squeeze you into his life as an afterthought. He makes space for you without asking you to beg for it. You don't feel like a convenience. You don't feel like a distraction. You feel like you belong there. And belonging is a psychological signal that he's not just attracted to you, he's anchored to you. He also becomes accountable. When he's wrong, he doesn't twist the story. He doesn't gaslight. He doesn't deflect. He owns it. That's rare. Accountability requires ego to step aside, and men don't do that unless the relationship is more important than their pride. He's not perfect, but he's honest about his imperfections, and that honesty builds a kind of trust that can't be faked. He stops trying to impress you with surface-level things and starts showing you depth. He doesn't need to look powerful. He doesn't need to dominate the space. He becomes quieter, more grounded, more intentional. That's not him fading. That's him focusing. Because real attachment doesn't make a man louder, it makes him clearer. You also notice that he doesn't rush you to become someone else. He doesn't push you to change. He doesn't project his past onto you. He meets you where you are, not where he wants to shape you. That level of acceptance is psychological intimacy. It creates safety, not pressure. And through all of this, something subtle happens inside you. You stop feeling like you have to perform. You stop calculating your words. You stop pretending. Your guard lowers naturally, not because you're weak, but because you feel secure. That's the power of a man who is truly crazy about you. He doesn't take your power from you. He allows you to keep it. Your instincts sharpen around him. You trust your intuition more because there is no mental fog. Confusion disappears. Drama fades. The emotional noise quiets down. You are present. You are clear. You are grounded. That clarity is not boring. It is rare. This is the psychology behind real attachment. Not obsession. Not chasing. Not chaos. Real, controlled, steady emotional connection. It doesn't look flashy, but it feels powerful. It doesn't shout, but it speaks in consistency. It doesn't promise. It proves through behavior. And when you experience it, you don't have to wonder. You don't have to analyze every message, every pause, every tone shift. You don't feel like you're walking through a field of emotional landmines. You feel stable, calm, respected, seen. Because the truth is, when a man is truly crazy about you, the strongest psychological sign isn't what he says or what he does. It's what he refuses to do. He refuses to play with your emotions. He refuses to waste your time. He refuses to create confusion. He refuses to be careless with your heart. He refuses to make you question your worth. He refuses to make you chase him just to feel valued. Every choice he makes, every word he speaks, every action he takes is calibrated, intentionally or subconsciously, to reinforce your sense of security, your sense of clarity, and your sense of being truly seen. He doesn't act out of ego. He doesn't act out of habit. He acts out of understanding that the connection you share is fragile in its absence and powerful in its presence. And he honors that balance every single day, whether or not you are aware of it. You'll notice that his attention is not fleeting. He doesn't scatter it like confetti across a dozen distractions. His mind doesn't wander when you are speaking. His eyes track your emotions. His tone shifts to match your energy. He listens not only to respond, but to absorb, to process, and to reflect back what you might not even know you're feeling yet. That level of attentiveness is rare because it requires self-discipline and emotional intelligence. He doesn't just want you, he wants to understand you. And when someone prioritizes understanding over desire, the connection reaches a depth most people never experience. A man who is truly crazy about you also uses consistency as a form of reassurance. You don't need daily declarations because his behavior itself declares the message, I am here, I am present, I am invested. He doesn't need grand gestures to prove himself. His quiet, steadfast presence speaks louder than any words ever could. And in that quiet, there is a psychological impact that is profound. It signals safety, reliability, and predictability, qualities that are far more attractive than volatility or flash. He also becomes attuned to your moods and energy patterns, without you needing to explain them. He senses when you need space and respects it. He senses when you need comfort and provides it. He intuitively knows when to talk, when to listen, and when silence is the most powerful gesture he can offer. That level of attunement is not an accident. It's a psychological alignment that comes from care and deep interest. When he mirrors your rhythm, it doesn't feel manipulative. It feels like home. Another layer of this psychological connection is his ability to regulate his own emotions in your presence. He doesn't let his frustrations spill onto you. He doesn't use arguments to test your loyalty. He doesn't fluctuate between extremes to see if you will stay. Emotional stability is a sign of deep care. He knows that, if he can't manage his own emotional state, he has no business entangling you in it. That restraint is not boring. It is rare, disciplined, and magnetic. He also invests in your growth, not in a controlling way, but in a supportive way. He notices your potential before you see it. He encourages you to pursue it. He celebrates your successes, and he doesn't diminish your challenges. He doesn't seek to compete with your achievements. He elevates them. A man who is truly invested does not feel threatened by your light. He wants it to shine brighter because it doesn't dim his own. You'll find that he also makes decisions with you in mind, even small ones. Where to eat, which events to attend, even how to structure his schedule. There's an unspoken consideration. Does this serve the connection? Does this honor your presence? Does this make your life smoother? Those choices are subtle, but psychologically they communicate more than any declaration ever could. They say, you matter. Your life and comfort matter. I want to be part of it in a meaningful way. He is also patient with your process, your boundaries, your emotional cycles. He doesn't rush intimacy. He doesn't demand explanations for moods or past experiences. He waits. He observes, he learns, and in that patience he creates trust. Trust that you can be yourself fully without fear of judgment or rejection. Trust that your emotional honesty will not be weaponized or dismissed. That trust is a psychological anchor. It keeps you grounded and connected. At the same time, he challenges you, not to break you, but to elevate you. He doesn't flatter blindly. He doesn't appease. He pushes you to grow, to see beyond your comfort zone, to expand your capabilities. That challenge is subtle, but powerful. It communicates, I believe in you, I see your potential, I know you can handle more than you think, and I will support you along the way. When challenge is wrapped in care, it becomes irresistible rather than intimidating. He also has a way of making ordinary moments feel extraordinary. He notices the little things that most people overlook, a change in your hair, the book you're reading, the way you pause when something matters to you. He remembers. He comments. He references these small details later. Psychologically, this signals that you are memorable, that you are valued, and that you are not invisible. These tiny attentions accumulate over time, building a depth of connection that overt declarations cannot achieve. Another subtle psychological trick is his ability to hold back when appropriate. He doesn't reveal everything at once. He doesn't overwhelm you with his emotions, his history, or his desires. Instead, he reveals himself in measured doses, enough to build trust, enough to create curiosity, enough to allow intimacy to grow naturally. That restraint signals patience and emotional intelligence. It communicates that he is in control of himself, and by extension, in control of the stability he brings to your relationship. You'll also notice how he prioritizes your emotional well-being over immediate gratification. He doesn't make impulsive decisions that could hurt the bond. He doesn't give in to short-term urges at the expense of long-term connection. He thinks strategically about your relationship without being calculating. His decisions are guided by care, not convenience, by foresight, not impulse. That kind of foresight is rare and psychologically magnetic because it demonstrates reliability, maturity, and respect. He also becomes protective, not in a controlling way, but in a way that ensures your peace. He defends your space, your boundaries, your time, and your emotional health. If someone or something threatens your stability, he notices. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't escalate unnecessarily, but he ensures you feel supported, secure, and defended. That psychological signal communicates loyalty and safety, two things that are far more persuasive than words. And while all of this is happening, he allows you to be the full expression of yourself without fear. You can be messy, you can be flawed, you can be angry, sad, joyful, or quiet. He doesn't need to fix you, he doesn't need to manage your emotions. He meets you where you are, celebrates your victories, and supports you through your challenges. That kind of psychological freedom is addictive. It removes the constant tension that most relationships carry and replaces it with ease, trust, and intimacy. He becomes a mirror for your best self. His presence elevates you because he holds a standard, a calm, a respect, and an attentiveness that inspire you to rise to that same level. You don't feel pressured. You feel inspired. You don't feel judged. You feel aligned. That is a subtle, powerful psychological strategy that transforms the dynamic from attraction to deep attachment. You also notice how he navigates conflict. He doesn't attack. He doesn't blame. He doesn't withdraw to punish. He approaches disagreements with calm, curiosity, and a desire to understand. He prioritizes resolution over victory, understanding over ego, and connection over correctness. That approach doesn't just keep the relationship intact, it deepens it. Conflict becomes an opportunity for growth, not a threat to survival. And the most profound psychological signal is how he consistently demonstrates that your presence matters. He adjusts, he listens, he learns, he waits, he invests, he protects, and he supports, all without you having to demand it. That consistency, over time, sends a message louder than words ever could. You are essential. You are valued. You are chosen. And when a person receives that consistent psychological reinforcement, their trust, respect, and emotional attachment deepen naturally, effortlessly. This is what makes a man who is truly crazy about you different from the rest. It's not the words, it's not the declarations, it's not the dramatic gestures or the fleeting infatuation. It's the quiet, consistent, intelligent, emotionally aware behaviors that anchor him to you and anchor you to him. It's the patience, the restraint, the protection, the attentiveness, the alignment, and the intentionality that signal devotion without needing to shout. Every glance, every pause, every considerate action, every small but consistent choice compounds. Psychologically, this is how attachment is built. This is how trust is earned. This is how love becomes something steady, real, and rare. He doesn't need to convince you. He doesn't need to test you. He doesn't need to chase you. He simply shows up repeatedly in ways that matter, in ways that you feel even before you recognize them. And in the presence of a man like this, you realize that emotional security is magnetic. It's irresistible. It draws you in because you are no longer fighting confusion, anxiety, or uncertainty. Instead, you are breathing easier, thinking clearer, and moving through life with someone whose psychology aligns with yours in the most profound, stabilizing, and affirming ways. That alignment is not accidental. It is the result of intentionality, emotional intelligence, and deep care. It is the mark of a man who is crazy about you, not desperate for you, not chaotic with you, not manipulating you, but truly, strategically, and profoundly invested in you, in the connection and in the life you can share together. And when you see all these subtle, psychologically charged behaviors come together, you understand without words what no declaration could ever convey, that he is present, that he is committed, that he values you, and that he has anchored his emotions, his intentions, and his life around the presence of you in a way that is deliberate, powerful, and life-altering. And the impact of his presence goes far beyond the surface. It reaches into your very nervous system. You notice it in the way your heart rate stabilizes around him, in the way your thoughts slow and become more coherent, in the way why our body relaxes even when the world around you is chaotic. That is the subtle psychological power of someone who is deeply invested. He doesn't need to force attention. He draws it naturally by creating a sense of calm, predictability, and safety that is increasingly rare in the world. It is magnetic because it feels rare, and you recognize it instinctively before your conscious mind catches up. You also notice that he becomes a student of you. He observes patterns in your behavior, the way you handle stress, the way you react when your boundaries are crossed, but he doesn't observe to manipulate. He observes to understand. Every observation informs his choices, shaping how he communicates, how he engages, and how he aligns with you. The psychology here is profound. By observing without imposing, he creates a connection that feels both natural and intentional. He becomes a mirror to your emotions, not a disruptor. There is a subtle rhythm in the way he communicates. He doesn't overwhelm you with constant messages or calls. He doesn't flood your space to prove his interest. Instead, he creates a pattern of availability that is steady, reliable, and reassuring. His attention is deliberate, not random, and that pattern alone sends a powerful signal. You are important, but your independence is respected. You feel noticed without feeling pressured. You feel valued without feeling trapped. That psychological balance is rare because most people confuse intensity with passion. He understands that real emotional gravity is cultivated, not forced. He also becomes careful with his words. He doesn't speak carelessly. He doesn't toss out compliments or criticism without thought. His words are precise, intentional, and emotionally calibrated. He knows that language can build or erode trust, and he chooses to build consistently. The effect is subtle but undeniable. You start to feel like he's attuned to your inner world, that he understands the nuance of your emotions, that he respects the delicate balance of your feelings. That attentiveness is not accidental. It is the hallmark of someone who is invested deeply. Another psychological strategy is the way he remembers. Not just your birthday or your favorite color, but the small details you mention in passing, the fleeting frustration, the half-finished thought, the offhand comment about a dream or a fear. He brings these details up later, naturally, without making a show of it. That signals to your subconscious that you are seen, truly seen. It communicates that you are worth attention and worth remembering, and the effect on your psychology is profound. You feel valued on a level that goes beyond surface acknowledgement. He also balances his vulnerability with his strength. He doesn't overshare, and he doesn't withhold out of fear. He reveals his inner world in measured, intentional ways. He shows you his emotions, his past, his struggles, but only enough to build trust, not to burden. That balance signals maturity and emotional intelligence. When someone can be vulnerable without being volatile, it reassures you that the connection is grounded in stability rather than drama. That subtle equilibrium draws you in, because your mind and body recognize safety as deeply attractive. You notice the way he supports your autonomy. He doesn't try to control your choices, your schedule, or your decisions. He doesn't isolate you or test your loyalty. Instead, he provides guidance, encouragement, and support while respecting your right to choose freely. That psychological approach communicates trust. He trusts you, and he earns your trust in return. The effect is that you feel empowered, not confined, safe without being restricted, and valued without being dependent. He also uses restraint as a form of respect. He doesn't push boundaries unnecessarily. He doesn't rush intimacy, emotional or physical. He waits. He observes. He lets the relationship unfold at a pace that is comfortable for both of you. That restraint is not passivity. It is a conscious, disciplined choice that demonstrates self-control and consideration. It signals that he prioritizes the connection over impulse and that he values you enough to honor your timing. That form of psychological intelligence is rare and it is magnetic. There is also a subtle protective instinct that emerges. He notices when something or someone threatens your peace, and he positions himself in ways that guard your well-being. But this protection is not possessive or controlling. It is respectful and empowering. He shields without encroaching. He steps in without overwhelming. That sense of emotional and physical security creates a foundation for trust, intimacy, and deep attachment. Your subconscious recognizes this protective behavior as a signal of commitment and loyalty. You'll also notice his patience during disagreements. He doesn't escalate conflict unnecessarily. He doesn't resort to anger, blame, or avoidance. He approaches conflict strategically, calmly, and with the goal of resolution rather than winning. That psychological approach transforms disagreements from potential threats into opportunities for understanding and growth. You learn that differences won't destabilize the relationship because he handles tension with care, intentionality, and emotional intelligence. That level of stability is rare and profoundly attractive. He becomes attuned to your emotional state in ways that feel intuitive. You may not even consciously recognize it at first, but you'll notice the timing of his gestures, the tone of his voice, the way he approaches moments of stress or joy. He doesn't need to be told, he senses. That attunement is a subtle psychological influence. It creates a sense of being understood without having to articulate every thought or feeling. That sense of intuitive understanding is incredibly powerful because it bypasses logic and speaks directly to emotional security. Another key factor is his ability to elevate your experience without demanding it. He doesn't compete for attention, and he doesn't manipulate circumstances to dominate your focus. Instead, he becomes a source of inspiration, support, and calm presence. He makes ordinary moments feel significant through thoughtfulness, attentiveness, and care. That consistency reinforces the psychological bond. You associate him with security, respect, and emotional elevation, which deepens attachment naturally over time. He also understands timing. He knows when to act, when to wait, and when to offer space. That psychological mastery comes from experience, awareness, and deep care. He doesn't force outcomes, he creates conditions. He doesn't chase attention, he provides moments of value. That control over timing signals maturity and intentionality, and it allows the relationship to grow organically rather than chaotically. You feel like the connection is not a product of chance, but a product of careful, consistent investment, and over time, these behaviors accumulate into something profound. You start to notice the pattern. He is reliable, present, patient, protective, attentive, restrained, respectful, and emotionally intelligent. Each small action reinforces the others. The cumulative effect is psychological gravity. You feel drawn in not because of drama or intensity, but because of steadiness, trust, and alignment. That gravity is invisible, yet impossible to ignore. He also makes space for your growth and individuality. He celebrates your achievements, encourages your pursuits, and respects your need for independence. He doesn't compete with your success or diminish your identity. Psychologically, this creates a sense of mutual empowerment. You feel free to be yourself fully, knowing that your autonomy is honored and your strengths are appreciated. That freedom enhances attachment because it reduces fear, control, and insecurity, factors that typically destabilize emotional bonds. You'll notice that he also prioritizes long-term connection over short-term satisfaction. He doesn't seek immediate gratification at the expense of emotional stability. He thinks strategically, consciously, and empathetically about how his actions impact the relationship over time. That foresight demonstrates commitment, maturity, and psychological intelligence. It signals that he is invested not in fleeting excitement, but in building a durable, secure, and deeply satisfying bond. And in all of this, there is a subtle consistency that is unmistakable. You don't have to guess where you stand. You don't have to wonder if his attention is genuine. You don't have to navigate emotional landmines or second-guess his intentions. His presence, behavior, and choices communicate reliability, security, and care without need for explanation. That kind of consistency is rare, and it creates a foundation for profound psychological attachment. He also becomes an emotional anchor in ways you may not even consciously realize. When life is unpredictable, chaotic, or stressful, he remains steady. He doesn't add volatility to your emotional landscape. Instead, he absorbs turbulence with calm, care, and intentionality. That steadiness signals reliability and safety, which are core drivers of psychological attachment. When someone consistently demonstrates emotional regulation and maturity, your mind and body recognize it as a stabilizing force worth investing in. Every interaction, every choice, every subtle behavior reinforces the underlying message. You are valued, respected, seen, and safe. That is the essence of the psychological tricks of a man who is truly crazy about you. Not manipulative, not deceptive, not coercive, but deeply intentional, consistent, and emotionally intelligent. And the impact on your mind, your heart, and your body is profound. You feel secure, grounded, and understood. You feel drawn, not pressured, chosen, not chased, valued, not managed. And as you continue to experience these subtle strategic behaviors, you realize the depth of his investment. It isn't about showy gestures or empty declarations. It is about the quiet accumulation of actions, consistency, attention, respect, patience, protection, restraint, and emotional intelligence. That cumulative effect creates a bond that is stronger, deeper, and more enduring than anything built on words alone. You start to understand, without consciously analyzing, that you are being anchored not by chaos, drama, or desperation, but by intelligence, intentionality, and care. That realization changes everything. It rewires your expectations, recalibrates your trust, and shifts your perception of what emotional connection can feel like. It is subtle, it is powerful, and it is psychologically transformative. He becomes a constant in your life, not because he demands it, but because he earns it through consistent, intentional, emotionally intelligent behavior. And that consistency, steady, unwavering, and thoughtful, is the ultimate signal of a man who is crazy about you. He doesn't need to convince you. He doesn't need to test you. He doesn't need to chase you. His actions, psychology, and presence do the work themselves, shaping a connection that is profound, secure, and magnetic. And in the quiet, subtle accumulation of all these behaviors, you realize so. Nothing extraordinary, emotional depth, security, and attachment are not products of drama, intensity, or manipulation. They are products of patience, intelligence, alignment, respect, and consistency. That is the psychology of a man who is truly, profoundly, and undeniably crazy about you. Not conquest, connection.